It's time to get sexy. So watch Secular Sexuality live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTSS and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callsex.
Welcome, everybody. It is May 8th, 2022, the day of our moms, not the year of our Lord today. We are Talk Heathen, a product of the atheist community of Austin, a 501c3 organization dedicated to the promotion of positive atheism and the separation of religion and government. Today, I've got Richard with me, which I'm stoked for because I know you've backed up in the past, and we've been in the same room, but we haven't been on the screen together. So I'm really, really excited to do that for Talk Heathen. So
yeah, we have not been on together, and I am very excited about being on with you, Mike. I've watched you and Kenneth so many times, and had the will to be here with you. I've done a show with Kenneth when I was backing up one time when I think it was you actually couldn't make it. Due to some issue or other, and I ended up coming on. That was my first ever Talk Heathen, and this is the first scheduled one I've ever been on. So I'm very, very excited about being on. I'm very excited about being on with you. You're one of my favorite people in this community.
Oh, shucks.
Let's take some calls.
No, keep it coming. I want just shower me, build my ego. Come on, I need to hear it. No, but we appreciate you coming on, Richard. And if for anyone new or current viewers, there's many ways that you can support us. Below the video, you can become a member by hitting the join button. That gives you access to emojis, gives you access to getting past the pesky little slow mode, which I know, Richard, you mod on the live chat, so you're all aware of all that. And below the live chat, there's actually a donation button in which goes directly to the ACA. YouTube does not take out any fees. So if you want to directly support the atheist community of Austin, you can do so there. Do you want to just jump right into calls? Because that's what I'm feeling like doing.
Yeah, let's jump in.
All right. So we're going to go with... So we take theist callers priority. And if it, we want theist callers to call in. We will always take priority. And I'm happy to say that we're going to start out the show today with a theist caller, Isaiah. Pronouns are he, him, from Korea, and is curious on how a will to survive could evolve. How are you doing, Isaiah?
Very well. Thank you so much for taking my call. This is my first time seeing Richard, but even before he was praising you, I was going to say, Jmike, you are an extremely intelligent person, and I really enjoy listening to you. So I know there's no way I'm going to beat you in a debate, but, I am a Christian and I do believe in evolution. But I am very curious on how you could describe that happening, purely by naturalistic means, because a will to survive seems something that would have to be developed over time and passed down from generations. So, you know what I mean? Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to understand. You're wanting to know, specifically what would cause a mechanism to want to survive and have that passed on. I'm trying to I think I get your question, but I just want to make sure that I fully understand your question.
Yeah. Well, okay. So so as a Christian, I would say that, even though I believe in evolution, I believe that God would have created some kind of underlying mechanism that could, bring it about. But also it seems like the will to survive, the desire to keep reproducing and not to just let something kill you or eat you, because if you ever see like a roach or something, then you try to kill it, that thing will fight you for its life, you know? And
sure, I guess I'm for me,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think about this because it's like if I did not have some will to live, like, do you think that I'm gonna in the back end have that propagate? Do you think like that? Because it seems to be that if I have no will to, like, if I'm a plant and I just say I have the will as a plant or something, and I have no will to photosynthesize, right? Clearly, like that species of plants wouldn't persist, right? I'm trying to understand. It seems to just be kind of baked into the understanding of what it means to have selection, right? Like,
and if you don't mind me jumping in just for a second here, the will to survive, if I'm understanding you properly, Isaiah, seems to me to be a kind of I don't quite see where the problem is. Let's have a scenario. I'm walking down a savannah, and there's a great big lion I see in the distance, and it sees me and starts chasing me. I automatically have that will to survive. I don't see that as particularly as an evolutionary thing. I think that's a basic instinct, which may inform evolution, but I don't see it being any kind of problem as a result of evolution. It seems perfectly straightforward that if you see something which you know is going to eat you, you don't want to be eaten, so you develop a will to try to survive that. So I'm really struggling with what you mean here by will to survive. So if you wouldn't mind kind of expanding a little bit, see if I've kind of hit the nail on the head or if I've missed something.
Yeah, okay. Then I definitely didn't describe it properly. And by the way, I love your accent. I think British accents, or you from Britain?
I am from Britain. It's an evolutionary trait I can't avoid, unfortunately.
He had the will to speak cooler than everybody else.
Okay, so let's just say the first life forms come about. Okay, at the very beginning, like literally like the very first ones that come about. Like, why would they have a desire to keep reproducing or keep eating? That seems something that would have to be like.
I already kind of have an issue with the fact that you say desire, because that's
me
describing
too.
intentional states. And if we're talking about like something that's merely a causal disposition or something, like, so think of it. The only example I can think of off the top of my head is like, and I'm going to get this term wrong, but I think it's called like chemotoxis or something like that. I could be pronouncing it wrong, but essentially like what an egg does is it releases some chemical and it basically attracts the sperm. And this is going to be some causal disposition. Like we could link why, the effect has the chemotoxis, or however it's pronounced, causes the sperm to be attracted, right? But I don't see intentionality in there or a desire to be united with the egg, right? That's just a causal disposition, like a probability set of what it could or could not do given, its features, right? Or its properties. So when you talk about desire and intention, I'm kind of weirded out about that, especially like people that are physicalists aren't going to say that's minds are going to be local, right? They're going to be at the back end. So any of that like talk about intentional or desire to propagate that's going to be a more local type of event than say like a plant's quote unquote desire to photosynthesize, right? That seems to be a category error, I guess what I'm trying to say.
Isaiah, would you consider will and desire as the same thing?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
I'm just interested because, like I said, your question, your opening question was will to survive, and then as Mike touched upon, then you seem to change it to a desire in earlier things, which seems to kind of take us off track a little bit. And I'm wondering if you're seeing those things and using those terms interchangeably. I'm not trying to trip you up. I'm just genuinely interested.
No. Thank you. No, first of all, thank you guys for taking my call. Absolutely. And I said, I know I'm not going to, this is not, I'm trying to debate you, but it's a legitimate question. Like, I legitimately don't understand how you could account for that inside of just a completely naturalistic universe. That I don't know, this may just speak to my own personal incredulity. I don't see something like that happening, you know what I mean, without any kind of intention, something behind it or programmed into it. It's kind of like more, I was saying, like out of will, desire, I don't know how you'd want to call it, or an instinct. Even the instinct, because you're talking about walking along on the savannah or whatever, but those are like things that are instincts that are passed down from generation to generation. So if you go back to the first generations, what's their, I don't know, you call it motivation, or, you know.
Well, let's consider that we're a human, and we're the first people, and there is no evolution, and we are the first people, and we're on the savannah, and we see the first lion, and we see it running towards us. Now, this is a thing that weighs what, 600-700 pounds, I would guess, at a minimum. It runs at maybe 25 miles an hour. It's big, it's got sharp teeth and sharp claws, and it's looking directly at us and chasing us. I don't think you need any predisposition to kind of have an instinct, even as the first person, that you need to try and get out of this thing's way to avoid harm.
Yeah, I mean, and my thing is that seems that like when you have something like persistence is just going to be type of that in like, I mean, I don't know if, because a lot of seems like what you're wanting to inquire about is going to deal with heredity, right? And so it seems that like persistence of existence is going to be an inherent trait, especially given that like if what's going to be selected for, right, like I don't like to say goal oriented, but it's not like as if there's this intent or goal behind the mechanism, right, for it to actively will. Like that's where I'm kind of curious on whether or not you're saying like the mechanism of selection has some intent, or like just the organism simpliciter, like why does it have the desire to go on? That's where I'm kind of not understanding what specifically you're getting at.
Well, thank you. You've given me some more things to think about, just to kind of polish it around. I just wanted to, you know, just throw it at you, see if you could give me some answers. But actually, just one quick thing before I go. Like, I'm really not trying to kiss up to you, Jmike, but I've heard you multiple times, and I'm just wondering, do you like just stay at home and read all? How do you acquire the kind of knowledge that you have?
Well, so I would first say, like, I'm someone who has a pretty severe imposter syndrome. Like, so I don't like to say that I think I study on a couple things that I enjoy. And when people give me that type of praise, I always feel like, oh, wait till you know me, you know, a little bit and see how clumsy I am. I talk with a lot of people that I consider way smarter than me. I don't claim to have any original ideas or arguments or anything like that. You know, that I have this, you know, thing. It's great minds. It's like science. We stand on the shoulders of giants. And for me to think at least any knowledge that I could claim I have is just because I had great minds before me. And now that I surround myself with and listen to online, I mean, there's really good resources online to go, and these people have these conversations. And you'll be surprised how absolutely intelligent some people are on either side of the conversation. But the one thing that I always find lacking on the other side of the conversation is a demonstration of the claim being true. But yeah, I would just say, you know, just surround yourself with a lot of people. I never in my life have been told I was smart until recently. So it's a new thing for me. So I don't know that I agree necessarily, but I appreciate it.
So, I live in South Korea, so I'm not really around a bunch of native speakers. But that being said, thank you for taking my call, and thank you for making me feel stupid like on a weekly basis, Jmike. And you guys have a good day.
We appreciate. I don't know that I can agree with making you feel stupid or me being really smart. I just like one thing, and I think if I talk to Richard about something that anybody has a specified thing. Like, look at a musician that's really good at music and knows music theory. I played music for 15 years. I couldn't tell you anything about music theory, right? I haven't dedicated the time in it. So that's one thing I think people need to realize. It's what you dedicate your time to.
Yeah, most
anyway,
definitely.
I want to get into that May 13th, Truth Wanted will be doing a live show from San Antonio with Secular Student Alliance. And everyone should tune in on that. It'll be a great show. Hop in there and say happy birthday, Jmike. There, I got to get my plug in there as well. So, but no, it'll be a great day. If anyone wants to support us there, May 13th, Truth Wanted. And also, you can support us on Patreon at tiny.cc/patron-th. You can become a patron there, and every week we shout out our top 5 patrons that we do later in the show. You can also, if this is too much hair on one side and not enough on the other, then what you can do is get the audio format, and that'll be at tiny.cc/AEN podcasts. And now that I have gotten through that, I want to shout out that on the 13th, for Truth Wanted, here is a little teaser of what to expect.
The atheist community of Austin is proud to join forces with the Secular Student Alliance to bring you Truth Wanted, live from the University of Texas at San Antonio on Friday, May 13th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Central. I will be your host, Objectively Dan, and I am thrilled to have members of the UTSA Secular Student Alliance as my co-hosts. We will also have some special guests in attendance as well. Matt Dillahunty and Jim Barrows from the Atheist Experience, Christy Powell from Secular Sexuality, and Anthony Magnabosco from Street Epistemology International. We will be broadcasting the show in front of a live audience, and we will both be taking questions from the audience as well as phone calls, because as always, we want to know what people believe and why they believe it. We are excited to announce that we will be holding a fundraiser for Secular Student Alliance. This important group empowers secular students to proudly express their identity, build welcoming communities, promote secular values, and set a course for lifelong activism. We are setting a goal for $5,000, as this amount can help them continue their mission for another year, and the ACA will be kicking things off by pledging the first $500. Simply donate to the fundraiser on the YouTube page for this episode, and those proceeds will go to the SSA. So join us Friday, May 13th between 7 to 8:30 p.m. from the Richard Liu Auditorium at University of Texas at San Antonio. But remember that seating is limited, and we will be on a first-come, first-seated basis. If you can't be there in person, be sure to watch it live on the Truth Wanted YouTube channel at tiny.cc/YTTW. Once again, I'm Objectively Dan, and say it with me, always keep wanting the truth.
And so now we're going to hop right into another call. We're going to go to Tristan in Texas. Pronouns are he, him. Claims that the definitions of gods don't make sense and that they're contradictory. How is it going, Tristan? Could you elaborate on? I mean, I think we all know what you mean, but maybe you kind of give where your head's at.
All right. So I was presented this idea of a year or two back, and essentially it is a lot of gods have this definition about them, like the theological gods that are presented by people like not Richard Dawkins. Can't think of a name right now, but often it's things like they create the universe, they created time and space, they have like all power, all these qualities to them, right?
William Lane Craig. Timeless, spaceless.
Well, yes. And so these qualities are given to these definitions, and I have found, and I've seen it presented to me, that these are contradictory definitions, similar to like saying, "Oh, this thing is a square circle." That doesn't make any sense. I can't even say it's wrong. It's illogical. There's nothing to grasp. I can't. To say that you believe that it is a square circle it's a nothing statement. I don't think there is any meaning to it. And
Yeah.
when
So
you say,
I have actually a question for you, Tristan, if you don't mind.
yes.
Because I'm in agreement, right? If somebody takes, I guess this is the way I'd put it, and there's a philosopher that talks about this, and I think this is a really, really solid point, that if I present someone an argument like God exists, or I present them an argument God doesn't exist, and they present me an argument God exists, a lot of cases in the premises of the argument, it might assume something that like I already don't believe in, and it might assume something that they don't believe in, and pick your claim, right? We're just going to disagree. But in the case that you're talking about, which I think is super important, is that if you can get them to agree on certain premises of the properties that they hold, right? Like I have a friend that runs an argument to say God shouldn't, if God doesn't want evil in the world and he's infallible and there's evil, then we have a failed God, right? We have an infallible, fallible God, which is a contradiction, right? If you hold those premises, that's just what it's going to mean. And I guess my question to you is, have you thought about taking those properties and asking someone, saying like, hey, do you accept this property? And then do you accept this property, or whatever it is that they're stating, and saying, hey, look, I can derive X and not X. I can show you that you have a proposition and the negation of that proposition, right? Like it's raining and it's not raining outside. If you can do that, then you can have more force. Have you thought about like being able to structure those out in a syllogism to show somebody?
Yes, I have found a little difficulty. So I base all of my philosophy science-wise. So first I learn I try and know what science says, or what I can tell about reality, and then I base my philosophies on these set of things. But that comes with an understanding of ideas of time, right? And a list of things that I currently understand that not necessarily are understood by people that I'm talking to. So like if I present the idea you can't create time without time, that the act of creation is a time aspect, and then you're
invoking temporal notions. Yeah.
And that's not necessarily something that, even if I explain it, will either be accepted or understood. And so
Tristan,
I'm trying to do that whenever I have these
Are you having these conversations with people, or is this kind of you working through the philosophy in your own head as you're learning about it?
So I'm a little bit of both. I'm in college right now, so I'm interacting within, we have a philosophy club on campus, and so I'm trying to interact with them, and I, sometimes go to some of the religious, not rallies, but, when some of the religious groups on campus show, we're having a thing, right? I try and go there and interact with them. But
and do you find a lot of difference within, let's say Christianity, that you're encountering these Christians? Do you find a lot of difference between the different groups with their theological and philosophical ideas about Christianity, and you're dealing with lots of different arguments, or is it just kind of one train of thought that you find you come up against?
I was a Baptist Christian myself, so I do see a lot of, I don't know if different arguments, but different ways of saying a lot of the same arguments. So oftentimes I see the one I see the most is I can't think of its name, but essentially the law, the fine-tuning argument. There we go. I see that one espoused a lot. And so, just of arguments I hear a lot, fine-tuning is probably the largest, at least currently.
Well, sure. I guess there is a different situation for me, because I don't see a property at which I could identify it's contradictory in those arguments. I just don't think that they serve to do the explanatory job. Sorry, what were you saying?
Yeah, no, I have no issue with I have no issue with definitions that are not contradictory. Either they, as you said, have no explanatory power, but in anything that is contradictory, like, being able to create everything or creating time. I think because it is contradictory, you can state that it does not exist.
Sure. So here's one thing that I am concerned about to say is like, because I think what you're saying is useful. And this is at least what I wanted to finish on with the point that if someone commits to like two premises about God that they believe in, and you could say, hey, you believe in a squared circle, right? You believe in a walking contradiction. That's great. That can be really useful if you can show that. But there's one issue that I found, because I've shown people arguments of things they accept, and where it's like, hey, this is a contradiction. You don't have to abandon necessarily your view, but you have to go back to the drawing board, because this doesn't work. Right now, your view is entirely incoherent. And there's always the psychological component. It doesn't matter that someone's like, wow, I've accepted all the premises, and then the conclusion follows. There's a psychological component. Like, let me ask you, you said you were a believer. If I gave you an argument that showed that you believe in a contradictory God, do you think that gets over your psychological kind of battle about not believing anymore? Because like, there's no way that I just am coming down the mountain with this argument that smashes, your faith completely, right?
I'm not really a good representation for the average believer. I was taken out of my belief because of that.
Oh, okay. That's it. So I don't meet many people that do. It's typically not the case. I'm not saying it's not always the case, but would you agree in some cases that like that's not like some syllogism I give, even if somebody accepts the premises about the God they believe, they're still going to try to rationalize it the best they can, right?
Oh no, yeah, 100%. I don't necessarily think this argument is necessarily for trying to convince other people, but I think it's something to present to other people who are willing to listen.
Yeah, I would agree. I definitely agree. I'm curious on what you think, because if this was something that didn't actually get you out of your faith, then it would kind of fit more where I was going. But the fact that it did, I mean, and you agree that it might not be successful for anybody. I mean, what do you think would take somebody out of their belief more often than not? Some deductive argument that shows they're in contradiction, or some like actual issue in terms of showing that they're, for like, say, they wouldn't accept this type of evidence for any other claim or something like that, right? Because my only worry is that it doesn't seem like these things are going to convince most people, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. I think the way I think that could bring people out, or not necessarily bring people out, but get them to think more about things, is essentially building logical reasoning. It's what I base most of how I got out on.
I think you hit
shown how to logically reason. That allowed me to reason for myself. I was presented a good argument, and then I left.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there when you said, the focus is to present people with kind of tools to improve the thinking, rather than to try and convince them of something. Because I don't think it's ever a good idea to try and convince somebody that they're wrong. You go in and have a chat. When you're talking to these people, are you talking to kind of individuals or kind of groups of people at one time? And are you talking to them on your own or with other non-believers?
Generally, I'm talking in a group setting where we are just, it's usually the philosophy club. We will go up, present ideas that we think, how we feel about this. And then as a group, we will one person will, going through the list of this is an issue I have, or this is an issue I have, and then go through it together as a group, with a whole list of identities. For me, I'm one of the few atheists on campus, so it's usually me trying to present my thoughts on these things and then going through that.
Yeah, and that's brilliant that you're actually willing to do that, especially in the face of, I don't want to say opposition, because I'm not, especially in a philosophy club, these people aren't going to be opposed to you as such as investigating the ideas with you. And that's the whole idea of a philosophy club.
100%.
And sorry, go on.
Oh no, yeah, I was agreeing. Yeah, it was exactly what it's like.
Yeah, and that's a brilliant setting to be in. That's a really good setting to be in, because that not only gives you the opportunity to discuss these ideas in a safe environment, but it also allows you to build the skills and build the ideas and think about the ideas in a safe environment, so that when you do go kind of out into the world and start having these conversations with perhaps, not always, but perhaps more hostile people, then you've got that skill there, that skill set there. Importantly, not to argue, but to have a conversation and to investigate and explore these ideas, which is a fantastic thing to do. And that's exactly what this show's about.
Yeah, I agree with that entire 100%. It's what I'm trying to do, when it comes to having these conversations. I just want people to be able to reason for themselves, like I'm able to currently, or at least I think I can.
I want to ask one last question before we move on to other callers, because what's put on the notes is that the concepts of gods are all contradictory. I mean, are you going to say that the God concept in general entails a contradiction? Because then I might get in a disagreement there, because I don't really see contained in the analytic definition of or God exists or God doesn't exist. I don't see how someone derives the contradiction unless we have packed in probably certain properties. Would you say all God concepts? I'm kind of curious on your thoughts there.
Okay. A little bit of that just comes from like a short amount of time trying to explain my reasoning or my thought process that's understood in big video. I think most God concepts I've encountered are contradictory. Obviously, if you say, oh, my God is the universe, that's not a contradiction. That's just a definitional change. So I don't have any issues with God essentially, I don't think there is a God concept. There is a general thing that I have encountered that I would say is contradictory, but due to the vastness in which people will define God, it's not really the contradiction of a God concept. More of things they call a God concept I consider contradictory, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. No, I just was curious, because I've talked to people that will make the claim that like there's a contradiction. They'll say like any God derives contradiction, and I'll have to put my theist cap on sometimes and be like, well, because if you have this ammo for me, I want to know it, right? I'm an atheist. Give me that. Don't shy away. But every time I inquire, it doesn't seem to be anything like really worth investing. Or like, it's like, okay, well, you're not going to see me run that, because it doesn't actually, encapsulate every single type of God. But anyway, Tristan, we appreciate you calling. I
appreciate y'all.
We are. Oh, I'm sorry. I did not mean to hang up. You know what? I did. I got my Matt Dillahunty in today. Shut up. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, no. I wanted. Oh, sorry, Richard. Go ahead.
No, that's great. I love what he's doing. I love the fact that he's going out and having these conversations with people and wanting to investigate this more. I can't fault anybody for doing that. I think there should be more of that in the world. Yeah, no, I agree. Especially like if somebody has an argument that's just as comes down the mountains where all gods don't exist, call our show and give it to us. We'll analyze the premises, whether or not the argument's valid and sound. We'll do it all. But anyway, if you guys missed anything on the show, you can check out this clip and catch up, and hopefully it inspires you to go back.
You have permission to get out of your head, to stop worrying about what a bullshit culture or a hypothetical future person or a bunch of 2,000-year-old Jewish poetry has to say about the subject. Enjoy your life.
This is a really good example. Two examples of two polar opposite abortion calls.
Yes.
You could choose the John way, or you could choose the right way to do these calls. We can be civil, or we can get our teeth out.
Atheists are here to ruin your fun or whatever. Like, that seems to be what
But Jessica,
we end up with over and over. Oh my God, I hate fun. I Famously hate fun. Thank you for bringing that up so I can talk about it now.
No
Fun's
problem.
terrible.
Stephen, I was
Yeah.
taught a lot of stuff too when I was
Yeah.
younger, and which was
Right.
every part of my life I was younger than I am right now. And
Historically, yeah.
historically speaking,
Back when you were Johnny P. Cherub.
The origin of life is irrelevant to
come
whether or
from
not we. The origin of life is
No,
irrelevant
actually,
to what.
you just asked
Would you
me what
shut
I
the f up and listen to me, Jay? I'm answering your question, and then you won't be as ignorant as you were before.
I feel like we're talking to an evangelical Christian meme generator.
And also, if you are unaware, we have a fan-run Facebook group at tiny.cc/FBTHG. You can go there, interact with some of the listeners. Maybe you'll find a theist in there that wants to talk. I would say probably not going to be as common, but if you do, you can have them call in the show. We would love to have a conversation with them. You can also continue the conversation on Discord by heading to tiny.cc/ACD Discord, where Richard will be. I might be there myself. We're going to find out after the show, but Richard will be there and we can continue the conversation there. So if you have any questions, go to tiny.cc/ACD Discord and be part of the conversation. Now, let's go to a call that I think is pretty interesting. And Richard, I feel like I've been over talking you, so I want you to handle the beginning of this, and I'm going to zip my lips for a minute. We're going to go to Laura in England. Claims that they have had a miracle and they don't know how to process. Pronouns are she, they. Laura, how you doing?
Hey, Jmike and Richard, how are you?
Hey,
very good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, so we got
It's-
two English people.
It's nice to hear a familiar accent.
I did, and I swear I didn't do that because of that. I swear. that's not why I did that.
You've got the northern accent. I'm in Oxford.
Yeah, I am familiar. How
English
so?
Yeah.
You have a miracle experience.
My dad's from England.
Yeah, I've actually.
Am I cool?
I promise this is not made up. This is not. I'm not a troll. This actually happened to me in January. I had a serious chest infection. I was hospitalised, and I was in a coma for 2 weeks, and I was resuscitated 3 times. So I'm claiming that I have been resurrected 3 times, which is 2 more than Jesus. And if such a miracle has happened to me, I'm wondering, why didn't I see the light, and why am I still an atheist?
Well, I think the thing is here we've got to. I think this comes down to a definition of what a resurrection is, and to begin with, and a resurrection doesn't just happen. Yeah, but a resurrection doesn't just happen to anybody. A resurrection for Jesus wasn't just him being brought back from the dead. The resurrection for Jesus was him being brought back from the dead through God's power, and that's what made it a miracle. Coming back from the brink of death, which is what has happened in your case, because you haven't been kind of brain dead, where death is a process. Death is a process, and we can our bodies can shut down, and once our respiratory systems and everything shuts down, that's when our cells start to degenerate, and that's when we're kind of technically dead. When there's no coming back, when there's cell degradation, and that doesn't happen in most cases of resuscitation. When people die in hospitals and then get resuscitated, it's a case of the cell degeneration hasn't occurred, the brain hasn't fully shut down, the body hasn't fully shut down. It's going through the process of doing so, and the resuscitated before that process has had the time to complete. So that's the difference between being resuscitated and resurrected, as in the Jesus account, because Jesus was dead. It was fully dead, according to the story. It was fully dead. His body had completely shut down.
Jesus.
They even mentioned the metabolic activity of Jesus. They're very specific.
Oh, yeah, I don't know why. Why did I have a miracle and then I'm not saved? Why hasn't God?
So why do you consider it a miracle? Because people get resuscitated all the time in hospitals.
I'm joking. Obviously,
And Laura, I'm not going to out my specific family member, but because I don't know if they want this out there, but I have someone in my immediate family that's quote unquote died 3 times.
Yeah.
Right. So this does happen. So I don't know what you mean by miracle, because you're talking to someone who had the same phenomena happen. I don't think even they consider it a miracle. I mean, they might to their own lights, but I don't know that they take it to be divine.
About the resurrection of Jesus, you're taking it wrong.
I'm sorry.
It was meant to be like a funny thing about how Jesus...
No, I get that. I just, the term miracle was where I was hung up on, though.
I know. It's just a funny thing. I said a miracle because obviously I don't believe in miracles.
It's an important part to pick. I know you were only joking, but it's an important point to pick up, though, because a lot of people do believe these things happen, and we must also remember that a miracle is not actually out of the ordinary. A miracle is statistically is 1 in a million chance from a mathematical process. So they're not out of the ordinary anyway.
Yeah. So me and Jesus were just a bit lucky to come back again. Thanks.
Well, yeah, Laura, I don't really know what I can add to it because I was still trying to digest a part of it. But if there's anything else that, if you have any other questions, we can take that before we move on to the callers.
I just wanted to, because I was watching your Easter show, about you were wanting people to talk about the resurrection when it was Easter. And I missed it that time, so I thought I'd give it a call.
That would have been great. Yeah, I'm sorry for any confusion on my end, but sometimes I want to make sure I'm hearing the person and assuming what they're saying is one way and not the way that I might interpret it, which sometimes happens. But we appreciate it, Laura.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Have a great rest of your night. Thanks for taking my call, guys. Much love.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, I think it's always important to even if you are speaking in a joking fashion to make these things aware, because people do have these as genuine beliefs, and it's okay, one person joking to another, but we should remember that when people do genuinely believe this, there is a conversation to be had.
No, I agree. Yeah. I mean, the content is relevant in the situation where that's not a joking manner, right? So, which is something people go through every day. But yeah, we're going to go on to, well, I'm thinking we can get this in because I like this topic a lot. And Edward's been waiting a long time. From Wisconsin, pronouns are he, him. Pseudoscience, how do you handle talking with someone who is pushing woo, which I talk to like on a daily basis? So
yeah, me too.
Do you have anything specific you want to ask about that?
Yeah, hi. So first of all, big fan of this this whole enterprise in general. This is really important. I appreciate what you guys do.
Thank you. Without a caller, we don't have a show, so we appreciate you calling.
Yeah, totally. So right off the bat, this is my first time doing something like this. And, this is kind of for the sake of like outreach, because I'm really the only person I know of in my circle, in my life that has, is kind of like a real strident hardline atheist. So I guess, I'm just sort of trying to reach out and, talk to other people who are, similarly minded. But like I said, it doesn't have to do with religion per se, but I think it does involve faith of a sort. So I don't really want to be too specific, but I have conversations with a member of my family on a regular basis. And these aren't like heated conversations or anything, but they're frustrating for me because I can't really get them to understand, and I don't want them to be friction. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what specifically? Or if you can say, I mean.
So, yeah.
Subject-wise, if you can.
Yeah. So yeah, subject-wise, yeah.
Yeah. So he tries to get me to buy into. He'll try to sell me on a bunch of pseudoscience woo-woo stuff like out-of-body experiences, past life remembrances, prophecies, collective consciousness,
astral projection, all that stuff.
Yeah, so Ghostbuster, like, you know, do you believe in ESP, yada, yada, you know, that kind of thing. So
Edward, is it coming from any particular background in this, or is it just a general kind of whole range of pseudoscience that he's talking about? Or are there particular authors or particular people he's listening to which are informing him?
Yeah, so recently he was telling me about this theory that there is this super civilization that existed 12,000 years ago. I forget what the author was. I think it was Graham Hancock. That's it.
Graham Hancock. I'm familiar with Graham Hancock. Yes.
Yeah.
He started off as a journalist and kind of took off about, it must be a while ago now, about 25, 30 years ago. He started taking off in this ancient civilizations, having advanced knowledge kind of track. So I am familiar with Graham Hancock. So yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but.
Oh, no, that's totally fine. So yeah, he's trying to sell me on this idea about this pre-Ice Age 12,000-year-old civilization that's responsible for all the ancient engineering achievements that modern technology can't replicate. And that, there are these sages, ancient sages that can access higher dimensions with meditation or magic mushrooms and are capable of more knowledge than modern scientists ever could hope to figure out.
Well, Edward, can we I want to pick out the first one real quick if I can. Have you ever asked them, like, broke down, because I've had someone called about this on Truth Wanted when I was on one time. And I don't know that I gave him this answer, but I've had other like pseudoscientific minded people give me the same thing. And I'm glad now I know where the source comes from. If you really think about what's being said there, the idea is that we have fast growing civilizations, technology, and how is that explained at such a rapid growth? Well, I know it's this other thing that has fast growing and successful, complex civilizations. But when you really answer that, you go, look, what you were trying to explain was like, you're trying to explain why some species has a fast growing civilization. And your answer, which you think has explanatory value, is the thing we're questioning, which is other aliens or other species with we didn't answer the question. The question still remains, right? We still have the same exact question. It's like the when someone wants to say, like, they want to account for consciousness and say that everything's fundamentally conscious. It's like, you didn't answer anything. We're still left with the same phenomena of like, well, what accounts for the mental properties in the first place? So have you ever mentioned, like, broken down his reasoning to him and said, look, you're not even explaining anything there. Nothing's being explained. You're just kicking a can down the road.
Yeah. And to expand on that a little bit, and, this is where I'm trying to sort of really develop how I talk to him. So I ask him, well, if this is, if this is so compelling to you, then, how come it isn't more, widely known? How come it's not, like, corroborated by, external scientific evidence? And he tells me, oh, there is evidence. You just got to read his stuff. You got to read his books. And my question is, how, like, I don't really, I'm just a layperson. I don't know anything about geology or paleontology, or things I think I need to know a little bit more about, so that I just don't want to be fooled. And I ask him, how do you know that if I were to read this material that you're pitching me, material written by the proponents of this kind of theory, how would it be more compelling to me than somebody else saying you should read this particular holy book or religious text?
Yeah, Graham Hancock has a great way of when he's explaining things. He tends to do it in such a way that he picks out the patterns that he wants to pick out from the so-called evidence that he's using, and he'll pick out he'll take a city block and choose 5 points that match what he wants to show. So he'll want to show a pentagram. He'll want to show that these ancient civilizations have used a pentagram in their architectural design. So he'll pick 5 points out that make a pentagram, and he'll ignore all the other data. So he'll start with his conclusion, and he'll work backwards from that. And that's never ever a good way to kind of conduct finding evidence for things. And authors like I'm not picking on Graham Hancock. I'm only mentioning because you brought him up. There are many others. Right. Authors like that tend to do that. They start with the conclusions, and the thing is, it's convincing to some people because it's not way out there, and it can sound plausible. When you're talking about kind of the alignment of the pyramids or ley lines crisscrossing over this, it can be plausible if you present it in a certain way. But it's when you start actually investigating it using the scientific method, and you realize that actually those aren't the case, and they've been picked out specifically to present that argument.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy because I think the trouble is that stuff like this, when you contrast it with the more sort of like religious, like dogmatic religious stuff, it's tricky because it mixes fact with like either lies or pure speculation. And I just, I tell my family member that I want to, I want to know more before I can actually say something on this, because, it's hard when you don't know much to parse out what's fact and what's fiction. And I don't think that's being, closed-minded or, not
at all. No.
To evidence, but he seems to think it is.
You will find with all of these kind of people who are in this arena as well, the mainstream scientists, the mainstream geologists, the mainstream historians are all kind of wrapped up in this big conspiracy to hide the truth, which is just not the case.
Yeah.
There's the geologists want to find the evidence to support what has happened. Historians want to find the evidence to support what has happened. And if something really outrageous has happened in history, a mainstream historian would want more than anything to find that. That would make their career. Nobody's going to try and cover this stuff up. It just doesn't make any sense.
It reminds me when I talked to Forrest about before he went on Talk Heathen, and I was talking about the flat earth type of thing, and we got into the global conspiracy, and I was like, yeah, you basically have to get into this idea that like somewhere in your schooling, they just like take you to a basement, and that's when you start sacrificing the babies to Satan. And as I'm saying this to Forrest just goes, sophomore year. Like just so nonchalant. I was like, oh, that's sophomore year. Yeah. I was like, but it's ridiculous. You have to be committed to like this really insane type of inner structure that couldn't even be possible. I mean, like just given, like, why are there no whistleblowers? And then, like there's nothing there that would substantiate in the first place. But if I could real fast, I wanted, because at least this is my thought process of talking with a lot of these people is it's like two things in a lot of cases. One, it's this wanting to like buck authority, and it's this like, it seems to be the psychological component of like not trusting anyone above you or authority or anything like that. And then on another end, there is this almost, it's like a vapid stand-in for the type of religious community or spirituality that people get in a more known religion. And I think a lot of times people, because I'll talk to these people and it'll be like, I bounced from Buddhism to this, to that, to this. And it's like, I'm seeing this pattern of that. Like you don't care about a methodology that determines truth. You care about siding with what makes you feel comfortable. And I don't know that I have an answer of how you get past, people's ability to side with comfort or to just stick with whatever kind of confirmation biases they have, right? I don't know how you break through that, but what I can say is asking a lot of questions with those people helps a lot. How did you determine that? What's the methodology? Do you care about if something's falsified? And if like, what is that? Well, if I have a like, I don't know about you, but when I have a hypothesis about something, I know that it would be like intellectually honest for myself to say, if this wasn't true, we would expect to see why, right? That would be intellectually honest. And when you phrase it in ways, if they're going to push back and be like, well, that's not intellectually honest, then you have a new question. Why? So you want to prevent possibly being updated on your belief. You don't think learning from mistakes is a good thing. I mean, that's one way to look at falsification, right? This principle that allows us to learn from mistakes. And once you tease out those things, I don't know that there's many rooms for them to left to go in. It's just going to be the gish gallop. Well, what about this? Or what about, which is always the typical move.
Yeah.
But if you break down the methodology or say like, look, I care. I actually care. It sounds like what you're saying is not going to get me to truth. You're telling me to read a book. Okay. I care about truth.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hand you a physics book and say, oh yeah, stellar nucleosynthesis is a thing. It says it right here. It's true. No, I would point you to the independent research, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe talking that way might benefit them to think about the way that they go about it. But that's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good, and this is helpful because, it's really frustrating to get him to concede a point, and just because I think he's just got a fundamentally different way of looking at the world, but I really do think that I am curious and I want to learn more, but I just want to make sure I know enough first so I don't fall for something stupid,
Just learn together. Sorry, mate. Learn together and invite him to read the research. When people write research papers and have them published, it's not just some guy writing a book. They're published. They've got to go through a process. It's very hard to get this stuff published, and then it goes through a review process with the other experts in the field. And read the stuff together, investigate it together, and that way you'll learn as well as him. And, learn the processes behind how archaeology is carried out, and learn the processes behind history, and learn the processes behind geology, and do it together and just go and look at the research behind this and do it on the stuff that he's interested in. Look at the stuff on the pyramids, look at the stuff on the Mayan civilizations, look at the stuff on ancient India, which is reading about from these kind of independent investigators who've got no real... Graham Hancock's a journalist. He's got no real academic skill in these areas. And go to the experts and have a look and do it together. Say, I've got a great project for us to do. Let's go and investigate and learn about this stuff together and talk about it that way. It doesn't have to be an argument, I'm right and you're wrong.
And if you do get fed up, you could always just walk to the medicine cabinet and say, my methodology I trust produced this, which allowed grandma to live a lot longer and have a more happy life, right? And a better quality of life. What is your method of determining truth produced similar to what's in my medicine cabinet or science of medicine or anything like that, right? Because if you get frustrated, and which is what I typically do. That's where I go, look, I have results. And if you want to deny that those are results, then I know where I stand in terms of my time wasted with you. Right. And that's that every increment of time I'm wasting my time. Now, in your case, if it's more closer family, situation, you got to bite your tongue on a lot of stuff, but it's at some point there's got to be, look, I have something that produces something. Give me one thing that you got. One thing. Because me and Richard, we're using a hammer to build a house. And, you're telling me you got some other tool to build houses. Yet we build the entire neighborhood. Your lot's still empty, kicking rocks. I want to know how you build the house.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to do that, though, I think you'd probably cite somebody like Edgar Casey, who is reported, who healed a bunch of people, and there's testimony, and there are doctors. There are doctors who were there in the 1920s, and they can't explain it. So that means it's true. So I need to be careful about that because
it is frustrating. Sorry, it is frustrating talking to people who will take lines like that.
Or just saying not being able to explain something does not lend credit to the other person's claim, right? Like, it's the mistake that people make where it's like even if they were to be like, oh, I have these issues with evolution or whatever claim that you hold, right? If we just even granted to them that they were successful in that, cool. You showed me my TV doesn't turn on, but I'm like driving to your house to see if your TV turns on, right? I want to make sure that has nothing to do with mine. But then saying, well, I don't know, why it doesn't turn on or something, or I can't explain it. It's like, okay, you didn't prove your claim, right? You didn't prove that it would turn on. And so I never understand this kind of mentality of like, they can't explain it. Okay, then you don't know the answer. Then you can't be confident in what you're attributing the phenomena to be if they can't explain it.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. This has all been really great. I want to let you guys get to other callers, but I just have one final question, if that's all right.
Sure.
Yeah, go for it.
So I really do want to, learn a little bit more about, it may seem, kind of like devil's advocate almost. I want to learn more about what these guys are actually saying, and, like
immerse yourself in it. That's the best way to realize it's garbage.
Yeah, a skeptical analysis, but it's hard to find stuff that these people didn't write themselves or proponents of these people didn't write. You know what I mean?
Just read what they're saying. Just read what they're saying and read it from a skeptical point of view. Get something, a great book that's helped me and throughout like my journey of skepticism is Demon Haunted World. And that's a fantastic book, and that will kind of take you through the steps of skepticism. And have that as a kind of handbook to read these things with.
Okay. Sorry, what was that? Demon Haunted Handbook?
A Demon Haunted World by I forgot the author. Oh God, it is a. Come on, someone help me out in chat. I should know this. This is a fantastic book. Carl Sagan. Yes, thank you, Mr. Hine. Carl Sagan, A Demon Haunted World. Read something like that alongside this stuff, and it will give you kind of a methodology to kind of understand this stuff by. And you don't have to go into it like thinking, oh God, am I going to believe it if I start reading too much of it? Introduce yourself to skepticism and the tools of skepticism, and then like read it with that in mind. And that's a fantastic way of like reading this stuff and learning about this stuff without necessarily falling into the trap of starting to believe it.
Yeah, you always look. You always have the freedom, Edward, of the null hypothesis, right? You always have the freedom of just going.
Of course.
Yeah, I don't know if the number of atoms in the world are even or odd, right? I don't believe you when you tell me that there's an even number of atoms in the universe, but I'm not declaring that it's odd, right? I clearly need to do some investigative work here. I need to make sure that my method works. Like I need to be responsible, right? I'm trying to do the thing that you guys aren't doing, right? That's my perspective, right? It's like, and that's because when what sticks out to me when you said that something couldn't, they say that this couldn't be explained. Well, if it couldn't be explained with the method we have, well, it can't give you confidence to declare what it is if you don't have a method at which explains the phenomena, right? Like if no one can see the issue there, that it can't be explained, I have confidence on this other side, but I have no methodology that gets me to an analysis of explanations, then they're not even really internalizing like what they're doing in this process. They're just convinced for bad reasons. And the only way to get to update that is to say, hey, I have a method where I'm pretty confident gets me more right answers than not. My only fear with the woo people, though, is that where you can get into the circle of, well, this math and things like this are designed to trick you. And then at that point, I don't know where else you can go, because I've had responses like that. And
I think that's just hang your heads in your hands and cry at that point.
That's when I start to feel like, wow, I feel like I need optimism right now, because I'm not there, but anyway, Edward, we appreciate the call. I
really enjoyed this call. Thank you.
I would definitely take Richard's advice, and just look what it means to develop, to even have a standard of evidence, right? Like to even have some standard at which you're in or out of accord with. If you ask somebody, hey, do you have a standard of evidence that you care about, that you're like, you could say, I have a belief and I'm in or I'm out of accord with that standard. It doesn't seem that many people ask themselves that. And that might be like the catalyst to go, you know what? Holy shit, I've never actually thought about a specific standard of like sufficient evidence, not just evidence, but like a threshold of where I would be reasonable to accept the claim being true. I maybe tackle stuff like that just on the very building block level of skepticism. I think that's, if it doesn't benefit the other person, it'll benefit you. So that said, I want to shout out, I think you'll be happy about this, Richard. The Non-Profits airs 3 p.m. Central after this show, right after Discord. And I was going to say, if you could take a little stand up, we can get a little. And it is, if you're not familiar, it is the flagship show of the AEN Podcast Network. Yeah, that's right. Network twice. But yeah, so and then for today, we always, or for this week and every week, we always do our top 5 top patrons of the week. And they are Eric Tweet, Dingleberry Jackson, Balam's Donkey, Ayame, I think that's how you pronounce it, Dan Conger, and honorable mention. And I know someone by this name, but I don't know that this is them. But either way, we are happy to have the honorable mention, Joseph Schmidt. So I've been reading some papers by a person named Joseph Schmidt. So, but anyway, we will try to fit in another couple calls. We have Mark in Australia. Pronouns are he, him. You say the scientific method is the best pathway to truth. He disagrees, or at least says that consciousness reveals truth more reliably than local or logical methods. Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. That's another call this show. Yeah.
I'm sorry? Yeah, I can hear you. You're a little soft, but what's on your mind?
Yeah, I just thought I'd push back against this idea that the scientific method is the best pathway to truth. It may well be, but I wonder if it's a bit presumptuous. I mean, what is meant by truth? Do you have a definition of truth that I can to clarify?
I have a definition of truth that you. Okay, so I like to distinguish truth, and Mike may push back on me on this, and this is great, but I have a definition of truth that we have two things. We have reality and we have truth. And reality is all that stuff out there, squiggles and lines and atoms and stuff we can't see and don't understand. All that stuff is reality. That gets into our brains via our senses, via our ears, our eyes, blah, blah, blah. It's converted into signals which our brain picks up. And we as a species have a shared reality based on that interpretation that goes to our brain. And that shared reality is what we have as truth. So we agree that we're talking via the internet or over vast distances. We agree we're both human beings. We're probably both wearing clothes. I'm not sure about you. I certainly am. We can both read words in a common language. We can learn new languages. This is all a shared reality. And that is a truth. And we know that's a truth. We've got standards of that being a truth. So we can have a difference between reality out there, which is just squiggles and lines and atoms and stuff, and our shared reality. And different species have different shared truths. So dogs have different truths to us. Cats have different truths to dogs and us. Lions have different truths, so that's technically cats again. So we all have this shared truth. And that's what I consider truth to be. This shared reality that we as a species have and can agree upon.
If I understand that correctly, I was very pleased to hear you saying what you were saying, because I thought you were in agreement with me. But I don't think we do have that shared reality. I think we have different realities that we don't realise how different that they are, because we do have a common language. The language is very artificial. It's a creation, it's an artifact of civilization. And we have common words, but we do not have common meanings, because you understand words differently than I do, because of all the different connotations that you associate them with. And therefore, when I'm speaking and making a clear sentence, and three people in the room hear what I say, we have three slightly different interpretations that are all equally justified from the perspective of those three different people. So I think truth is contained entirely as a linguistic artifact, and that, rather than quite the way you put it.
But we can discuss that and agree upon that. Do you not agree? It's not a case that we just have completely wild interpretations of those things. You might mention a table to somebody. There may be three people in a room and you mention table. Now, those people will interpret that slightly differently. I'll think of the table I've got in my living room. Somebody else might think of a great grandiose table in a stately home. Somebody else might think of a small garden table. So we are interpreting those things differently, but we still have the common understanding of what a table is.
Indeed, but when you are using abstract concepts and words that don't have a very solid foundation, things like justice or love, or there's millions of words that have a very nebulous sort of meaning. Yet, nevertheless, in the courtroom, sales people, advertisers, they use ambiguous words and phrases. The whole intention is to create a sort of a sense of what they're getting at. But I do want to be talking about religion and about the legitimacy of the notion that the scientific method is the best pathway to truth. I want to just offer a counter argument to that and say, well, the scientific method relies on experimentation, on language, on experience, and as you said, different animals have different experiences of those chaotic atoms swirling around in the universe. So what I'm saying to you is that these different interpretations are, given that you agree with these different interpretations of different animals, and perhaps you agree with me that different people will have to a certain degree, that clouds things up greatly and undermines the scientific method to a certain extent with regard when you compare it to direct experience, when you compare it to consciousness per se, because you can't start understanding the arguments of any language or any argument of any person until you have an experience so that you can interpret the meanings of the words that they are using. Am I talking too long?
No, I was just trying to hear you. It's a little fuzzy on my end. I don't know if Richard, go ahead. If you,
I was just I'll go on to give you a chance to speak in a second, Mike. I've been talking over you quite a lot. We have this shared experience, and when we're talking about religion, that's a separate. That's my area of study, by the way. Religion and philosophy and ethics is what I study at university. And when we're talking about those things, there are different ways to talk about those. So I'm not sure if I'm kind of slightly in agreement with you here, because if we're talking about religion from a kind of the idea of theology. There's a certain way to talk about that, which people outside of that may not quite understand or may not quite grasp, because it's a specialized area. Or if we're talking about philosophy, people there are specialized words which don't have common meanings that the common usage means. So we do have different areas, but when we're talking about religion specifically, it depends entirely about what aspects you're speaking about. If I'm having a conversation, if somebody's talking to me and trying to prove religion, and they're doing it through the kind of idea of theological truths or theological ideas, then I'm going to have an entirely different conversation with those people than I am with somebody who's going to talk about, say, for example, someone from Islam, who will often talk about scientific evidence backing up their book. So that's going to be an entirely different conversation. They're entirely different areas. So, of course, in those areas, we're going to have different ideas and things are going to be interpreted differently depending on your level of expertise in that particular area. But we still have this common understanding that we're working from, and these are specialities on top of that common understanding.
So we don't have a common understanding when it comes to the religious folk versus the non-religious folk, or the atheist versus the theist. There's a very deep divide between those two camps, and I'm interested in that divide, and I would rather it didn't exist, and I would rather do something to make it go away than to simply take sides and throw stones.
I'm sorry, I missed that. I didn't quite catch that. Do you mind repeating that?
It's probably my fault for talking too fast. Look, I'll try and I'm saying that I'm concerned about the fact that there is a divide between the religious and the non-religious, between the theists and the non-theists. And rather than taking a side or being on a side and going hard at arguing with the other side of how silly they are or how wrong they are, I'd rather get rid of that divide entirely. And that's
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Mark,
I agree with that. I'm married to a theist. I'm married to a theist, and the best man of my wedding was a theist from an entirely different religion to what my wife is. So I agree that we should, I don't want to fight with theists.
Yeah, my parents are theists. Like, people I know are theists. I don't hate theists there's divide between certain types of people, obviously, that how they engage. I think that's a testament to people. It's not a testament to one side or the other. But regardless, the divide that I care about is we have a proposition, right? X is true. Okay. Why is it true? What's the method for it? Did you care about falsifying it? Like, we have a rigorous method here. Why are we sidestepping it in favor of some conceptual notion of a method that you can't even demonstrate, right? Those are things I care about, because it's really easy for me to disguise my methodology with fucking nothing, right? For it to just be like equivalent with nothing, and then be like, yeah, but I don't know if we're coming from different backgrounds. No, if it's empirical and if it's in the world, there should be some detectable method. It wouldn't be my fucking fault that I don't believe in something that has no detection method possible or something. So my divide matters in the case of that. Like, I just want to know something on that side that shows a method towards what it's claiming to be true. Just something, right? I don't you can have any issues you have with science, methodology, physicalism, whatever positions. I'll grant that there's certain issues, right? It's fine. The whole idea is updating and gaining knowledge because you're not given it. But my problem, Mark, is that the divide is that I don't see the other side, right? And then when you called in, you said that the consciousness reveals more reliable truths. No, just the mere fact that I have consciousness or I intuit something doesn't actually adjudicate whether or not the intuition is right or wrong, because we can clearly just show an intuition that's right, that corresponds to reality, and we can show an intuition that doesn't, right? And it's going to be mere happenstance why we went with one intuition over the other, because they're the exact same. So a method that has a check and balances on those intuitions or conscious experience is needed. Otherwise, why not just believe the drunk guy at the bar next to you who has conscious experience and tells him things, right? I don't get it.
Look, let me just answer if I can. I have a belief that that I cannot prove, and I cannot give you any evidence for whatsoever, and yet I'm completely certain of it. It is that I am conscious. This is something of which I'm completely certain. I claim that I'm certain of that, and no argument that you put to me will dissuade me of that belief. But there's no proof that I can give you that I'm conscious, because you well know that I could be a dream that you're having, I could be a robot, I could be a zombie. You know that, don't you?
Well, sure, yeah. There's two things important there. One is, so like, if some people will use like the cogito, and those that aren't familiar, that's, I think therefore I am, cogito ergo sum. And so some people have an issue on whether or not the I, like in that that kind of first starting point of consciousness, refers to like you, right? And that kind of presupposes that you exist as this thing. So there's two ways to look at this. One, some people use the term incorrigible, right? If I have a belief and if I'm conscious, if I have a belief about being conscious, it's just incorrigible, right? Self-evident. If I tried to write like an argument against it, the second I put my pen to paper, I've already defeated myself. Why? Because it's constitutive that if I'm writing an argument that I'm having some type of experience, which defeats the argument that I'm trying to devise, right? And so the other end is that, can we make an assessment on whether or not the I, like in I think therefore I am, refers to like me in this physical body? Can you make that? Well, any solipsist could come up, right, and present like a matrix scenario, or Descartes could present the whole, you were born 5 minutes ago, from some demon, or made 5 minutes ago from some demon with all your memories intact. Like, you can do that. It's an unfalsifiable claim. So yeah, I can grant that I can't falsify this unfalsifiable proposition that someone puts on me, but that doesn't matter. I'm still having an experience and the seeming, and I'm presented with some form of that, right? Whether it's an onion, right? I call this like the solipsistic onion. If I'm in the middle of experience and the other layer, because onions have layers, if you haven't watched, a certain movie that says so. If the other layer is matrix, and then the other layer is brain in a vat, and then the other layer, right? That's fine. Okay, cool. I'll never have access to those layers, but I have access to one of them, and I have a constitutive, incorrigible experience of having a phenomena, and I can use that, and presumably other people that I'm assuming also have minds come in agreement, and I can have a science of medicine that takes someone like my grandmother and has their or their life have a better longevity, right? So I'm not seeing like why any of those things matter, other than just getting in the way of actual progress, given the experience that you do have, right? Because I don't think you're going to deny that you don't have this experience, right?
That's what I was trying to say to you, is that the reality of what I know to be my own conscious experience is something I cannot prove to you at all. It's impossible. Now, if in addition to that, I have this equally certain notion that God exists, then I say to you that equally, I cannot prove that I am conscious, but I know it's true directly. And I cannot prove to you that God exists, but I know He exists directly, let's say. Then am I being absurd in both cases, or only in one case? And why am I more absurd?
No, but this is showing you don't have justification in both cases.
Yeah, this is where the importance of a shared reality comes into it, because at the end of the day, I find it difficult to believe that anybody thinks that we don't actually exist. And it's an unfalsifiable claim, which is it's fantastic for mental masturbation, especially if you've had a couple of joints and you sat there with a few mates talking about it. But it's nobody really thinks that, because we all engage in life. We all actually behave as though we do have a shared reality, and that shared reality has a base level. It's a base level we all agree upon, and it's a base level where people don't agree upon. We can see defects within that. So if you're colorblind or if you're short-sighted, like I am, we know the defect that is there. So we know that my individual interpretation without corrective vision is not the same as everybody else's normal. So we do something about that. We supply glasses to people. And so we have this shared reality throughout everybody. And then we have additional claims to that, whether that be a God belief or believe in ghosts or believe in alien abductions or whatever that is. We have additional claims to that.
I mean,
and
it works ad infinitum. I mean, the same person that has the conscious intuitive experience that a God is giving that is equally under this idea that they could be under a extremely successful deception of a different God masquerading as the God they think it is, right? I mean, it works on any case that you want. So appealing to direct conscious experience won't matter for the religious. I'm trying to make sure I understand your point. Part of it is that the words have been muffled together a little bit because of the connection. But if you're claiming like consciousness is vital in that aspect, you're basically saying the thing that can determine the truth there is something that can just be subject to pure deception. I don't get that move because like you're not concerned in that if like something happened horrible in your life, you're not like, oh, well, it's just the case that I'm probably a brain in a vat, so I don't have to worry about any of this. Like no one legitimately uses that as some type of like defense, right? We just were presented with some experience. You have no way to falsify the fact that you couldn't be some other experience. A Christian who thinks that God's revealing itself has no idea that it's actually just aliens revealing, like just messing with a human for some reason. All these claims are equally absurd. I don't get why we'd focus on them, or at least it seems like you're focused on this aspect of consciousness that, you're going to be over a hump you can't never get over, right? If I'm understanding you right.
I don't know. I can't talk more slowly than I do. I apologize for that. I was just giving you a counter-example to what it was that you were saying when you said if a person can't produce evidence to me, if they have nothing to offer other than their word, then it's useless to you. I understand it. I accept it. Of course that's true. But I gave you an example. I can tell you just on my word that I am a conscious being. I'm not a zombie. I'm not a dream you're having. I am real. That is something that I cannot prove. You might be willing to accept it because you experience consciousness of your own, or so you claim. But
you missed the first part of what I said. The distinction. One is that there is a conscious experience that you cannot deny. It's incorrigible, right? You cannot deny that you have an experience because to do so requires the experience, right? You can't do that without it. So that's fine. You could claim that I'm maybe of some other ontological nature. That's fine. We can smoke a bong and go to like a party and talk about it with stoned undergrads, right? We can do that. That's fine. But like a methodology, let's just like grant we can't justify whether or not I'm a brain in a vat. Cool. I'm still experiencing, right? That first distinction I made, I'm still experiencing. And guess what I can do? I can figure out what the hell's going on in my experience, whether it be a simulation or not, doesn't matter. I have methodology to determine what is happening in that experience to the point where none of us could even show that it's not real, right? So if it works both ways, I'm just going to side with that. I have no choice but to go with my experience and use methods that help me get through this. I mean, I don't know why any of that matters. I could be a simulation, whatever. All the experiences I've had with my family and friends been pretty real and awesome to me. So I don't know why it matters to go outside of any of that. That seems just really like a waste of time to me.
I agree. It's what I was trying to say. I was saying, I know that I exist. I know that I have consciousness, but nobody else in the world does, nor can they ever become aware of that fact. They can assume it, they can believe it, but they cannot know that I am.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's just the problem of other minds in philosophy. We just like, yeah, there's things that we can't falsify that idea. Cool. That's fine. I mean, that might work also with AI. How are we going to know that it is conscious if we can't detect it in other minds? That's the philosophical question, but it doesn't prevent us getting results. It doesn't prevent, like I've said 3 times, having a medicine that aids in my grandmother having a better life, right, for the remainder that she has. Right. It doesn't get in the way of that. I don't see the practical use in any sense, because what I'm talking about with these methodologies are things that have practical use within that experience. It's not concerning itself with, well, maybe it's just useless, or I'm in a dream, or I'm a turtle's fart. Right.
I tried to give an example, but I don't know what practical value one is required. I don't think that a religion and belief in God is something that exists in order that it has a practical value. I don't think I need to have this practical outcome, therefore I'll go and believe in God. That's not what happens. No. People believe in God for some reason, and
yeah.
Belief in God is is manifested in language that you and I hear, and the language that they use to describe the reality of that God says things that are patently absurd. We can see how ridiculous these things are. It is obviously ridiculous. It's obviously wrong. So we go up against that and say, you're saying that there's a guy in a whale and there was a walking on the water and a race. You really believe that stuff? And they say yes, and then we say, well, okay, you're crazy, and away we go. But they don't believe that. They say they believe it because it's a token, it's a demonstration of their loyalty to say, yes, I believe that Muhammad split the moon in two. Yes, I believe it. You know, they don't. They're saying it as a token, a demonstration of their loyalty to their religion and to their clan and to their group. But
I think we've got to be very careful, Mark, to start dictating what other people believe and what they don't believe.
You're just saying that they're dishonest in what they believe.
I'm not. Oh, no, I am. Okay, I understand an interpretation. I'm thinking of examples when I was saying those things, right? People do say that they believe in things, and I'm saying that this is a demonstration of their loyalty. And I am suggesting that an account of this, why people say ridiculous things, why apparently intelligent people say ridiculous things and claim ridiculous things, could be that here's a hypothesis, that they might just be demonstrating their loyalty. Insofar as this is the possibility, I put it forward as a likelihood, given that what these claims are so patently and obviously absurd. So allow me as an atheist to say, I think when I hear religious people make absurd claims, that those claims are patently absurd. And I want to go up against those claims, and I can do that easily, and I can go on and on about it, but that doesn't help heal the rift between the religious and the non-religious, between the believers and the non-believers. What is wrong with the world, or what is wrong with the division between these two camps, cannot be contained in the interpretation of the words they use to describe what they believe to be true.
Sorry, Richard.
Go on, Mike.
Oh no.
No,
Well,
go
so
on.
yeah, part of it's one thing that I'll have to say up front that's been a little tough is that part of the audio, it sounds like it's on my end kind of fizzing together, so it seems that I'm missing some things, and when you go a long period of time, could you just lay out to me before we move on to callers specifically what your view is as quickly as you can, because I feel like I'm just going to respond to something that I'm not hearing correctly.
Yes, I want to go too. I think I've taken up far too much time. I was wanting to say that atheists are drawn to theists when theists make absurd claims. We immediately want to start debunking those absurd claims. I'm saying that this is an exercise that is away from my ideal. My ideal is that we find out why people are making those claims, and I think they are motivated by something other than their understanding of the meanings of the words and the meanings of those claims. I think those.
I don't know. It's just not my interest to talk about what I think the motivation of other people are in that case. Like, I'm going to take their word that they really believe it to be true, and then just ask them if, like, how they determine truth, what methodology it is, right? And if they can't give me something, I'm convinced, one, that they don't take belief seriously in knowing things to be true, and two, I'm not convinced that they could go to any other person that has similar standards like myself and convince them. I don't think it's a me problem, right? I think it's a them problem. I think it's the fact that they haven't actually given standards, but I'm not going to say that they're being dishonest or even to say that all an atheist wants to do is jump and show them what's wrong. There's atheists out there that just want to go, I just genuinely want to know why you think it's true, right? Every time I ask this question, I never get a good answer, right? So I don't know that I agree with you there.
I really enjoyed doing this. I wish I could do it again. I had more time. It's been fantastic. I've never done it before. Thank you very much for your time, guys.
Yeah, Mark. Have a good one.
Thanks, Mark. Cheers. Thank you.
Yeah, and I apologize to Mark or anyone in the audience if I didn't hear. Part of it was I want to make sure I addressed to. So if I addressed a straw man, then I apologize. But it is better sometimes maybe just ask for clarification to make sure. We can try to get in another call. So we have, I think we have enough time, right?
Yeah, we'll squeeze one in.
Squeeze one in. All right, let's go to Adrian in Ohio. Pronouns are he, him. did an archaeological reading of Genesis to find the artifacts without dogma. The Bible was really a story of conflict between the farmers and herders. All right, that's an interesting topic.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Adrian.
Hello.
Adrian. Am I pronouncing that right?
We got about 5 minutes, Adrian. So if you're there, we try to.
I don't
see
believe.
what. Go ahead.
I don't believe 5 minutes would be enough time to discuss this.
Okay, that's fine. Would you want to call back next week? Because I do want to make sure we give you the amount of time, but we have Discord commitments and things like that as well after the show. So we want to make sure that we can hear your entire point.
Yeah, well, that wouldn't be nearly enough time to discuss this.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll be happy to take your call in the future if that's okay with you.
Okay, that sounds fine.
All right. Well, thank you, Adrian. We appreciate it. Yeah, we want to make sure to give fair shake to anybody that has the.
Yeah.
But I wanted to be upfront because the story did seem like it might not take 5 minutes, so I wanted to make sure. But we're running up towards the end of time. I wanted to. Richard, where can they find you? Where
you can find me on? I'm going to do it again.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe you stand up again.
On the non-profits. If you're one of our viewers, for audio listeners, you can go to AEN /podcasts, I think it is, and you can find us on the
tiny.cc/AEN podcasts.
Thank you, Mike. Find me on the non-profits. Occasionally, I will be on there. I'm usually on there a couple of times a month. If you're not bored of me already, you can go and listen to more of me there.
Yeah, you could, and to reiterate some other ways that if you want to support AEN podcast, way you can listen to it on the go. You can go to tiny.cc/Patreon to become a patron and support us there. You can also donate right below the video. There is a button to become a member. It gets you access to the emojis, as well as not having the slowdown in your typing on YouTube. And then below that, in the live chat, below the live chat, you can see how to donate to us directly. We want to thank everybody, including our lovely crew. And so I want to send love rings to the crew and to essential workers. Wow. Well, they're there. You see them in your mind. The conscious experience is what gives it to you. There we go. And I also want to thank, regardless of whether you do believe or you don't, anybody that is an essential worker, we thank you regardless. If you don't believe, this is your community. If you do believe, we don't hate you.
We're just not convinced.
We love you. See ya.
We want the truth, so watch Truth Wanted live Fridays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTW and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/calltw.